Hi, I'm Adrian Cole, founder of the Live Forever Club, and I'm very pleased to have with me today José Cordeiro, world-leading transhumanist and also author of the book The Death of Death. Welcome, José.
Thank you so much, Adrian. A pleasure to be with you and with the members of the Live Forever Club.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is only a short sort of session today, so we haven't got enough time to go through your very long history and bio, but it does say that you have studied quite a range of subjects, so engineering, management, economics, science. So what was it that got you interested in longevity and the prospect of radical life extension?
Well, first of all, I went to university at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and I studied engineering. So I have been in love with science and technology all of my life. And then that was 1979 when I went to university. When I graduated in the early 1980s, many things were happening in terms of technology. And I got more and more interested in what was happening in longevity. And now things are moving exponentially fast. In the last 10 years, things are really happening very fast in longevity, so fast that I think in 2 decades, we will be able to stop aging and reverse aging. So I decided this is the time to get a book out about what is happening in the future, how we can live long enough to live forever.
Yes, it's a great line, that one. Yeah, live long enough to live forever. And you've written it along with David Wood, who certainly in the UK, the club is UK based, and we know him as another leading transhumanist, and he runs the London Futurists group as well. So how did you come across David, and what made you decide to write the book together?
Yes, well, David Wood is a fantastic person who also studied in Cambridge, but Cambridge, England. I studied in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we met a long time ago in 2007 at the Transvision conference in Helsinki, Finland. The World Transhumanist Association, as it was called at the time, now it is called Humanity Plus. We had yearly conferences. I organized one in 2005 in South America. Then 2006 was in Chicago, and 2007 in Helsinki. And he came to that conference with his wonderful wife, who is Korean, by the way. And they were a fantastic couple. So we became very good friends. So much that several times I have gone to London. I have stayed in his home. And I have met his son, who is half British, half Korean. And now David had a wonderful grandkid. So he is very happy that he will be able to live long enough also to see his grandson grow. And he was working on a book actually called The Abolition of Aging,
yes,
which I highly recommend, The Abolition of Aging by David Wood. And so I said, oh, your book is fantastic. You know, I love your book. It covers some of the ideas that I want to cover in my own book. And I told him, okay, so let me take some of your chapters and put it in my book, and then it will be our book. And that is how it happened. I basically took 4 of his chapters, put it into our book that has 9 chapters, basically 4 chapters from him, 4 chapters from me, 1 combined chapter. And actually there is a chapter about cryonics, because also we believe on plan B. Mm-hmm. Plan A is immortality, but plan B, just in case, is cryonics.
Okay, interesting. I've read the Abolition of Aging, and I hadn't noticed that it was kind of incorporated one into the other. So, but it's a great fresh read. The Death of Death. Okay, and actually interesting. You just mentioned immortality there, and the strapline of your book, the scientific possibility of physical immortality and its moral defense. And it's quite interesting that, you know, when I talk about longevity generally, and I tend to avoid the term immortality, as it can raise people's thoughts about fantasy films such as Highlander or Greek mythology. Is that a word you've chosen on purpose?
Actually, yes, I have. David, my co-author, is not so fond of it, but I am. And I think everybody understands the word immortality. So it is very clear what I mean. But if I talk about radical life extension, indefinite longevity, et cetera, it is not clear. But with immortality, I think it is very clear. However, you are totally right. The word immortality has been hijacked by religion. So when you talk about immortality, people think in religious ideas. But this is science and technology. And let me tell you something really interesting. In biology, actually, people talk about immortal cells.
They do.
And for example, the germ cells are called biologically immortal. This is how they are called in biology. And not only germ cells that all of us have, we have immortal cells in our body. Immortal in the sense that they don't age. They can always die, and they die if you kill them, or when the person dies, the immortal cells, germ cells, die. And the same with cancer. Cancer cells also discover how not to age, and cancer cells are called biologically immortal. So this expression is taken from biology. So even though it has been hijacked by religion, immortality, even in biology, from time to time, they talk about immortal cells, like germ cells and cancer cells that discover immortality.
Okay, that's great. Actually, that builds me confidence, or gives me confidence that I've named the club right. Like you, I have feedback of, well, that's a bit in your face, live forever. I said, well, yes, but that's what people understand. As you say, longevity, life extension, to a lot of people outside the industry, that doesn't really click with them. But live forever, like it or not, people understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, one more point there. Actually, my book has been translated with different names. Well, the original title, as you can see in my back, is in Spanish, La Muerte de la Muerte. In English, has been translated like that, The Death of Death. But if you see above my head is the Chinese version. In China, they don't like the word death. So either death or dead, it's something you don't talk about. So in China, it is called eternal life. So there are two Chinese characters. One is eternal, the other one is life, which basically also means immortality. In German, this is the German edition. In German, for those who understand German, it means the victory over death. Der Sieg über den Tod, the victory over death. And I have it here in Turkish. Oh, no, this is Portuguese, but anyway, a morte da morte, and in Portuguese, Korean, Bulgarian. It is like in a dozen languages, doing very well. It is a bestseller. Right now, the English edition is #1 new release in several areas, like biomedicine, biology, and even philosophy. So I'm really excited. #1 new release in many book categories on Amazon.
That's fantastic. It's great to get as many people aware of what's going on as possible. And although you're calling it a new release, obviously you've got La Muerte de la Muerte 2018, that was released. And as we know, things are changing so fast. In that last 5 years, there's been some massive improvements in aging research and longevity. But this isn't just an English translation. I'm reading it, and I can see there's already updates from last year and even the very beginning of this year. So what are the big changes in the last 5 years which you've had to incorporate into this edition of the book?
Very good point. The book is not really a translation from Spanish. It is a complete actualization, updating of everything happening on longevity research. And the same in every language, because there are also comments about different cultures. In China, in the Chinese edition, we talk about Emperor Qin Shi Huang, who is the emperor who built the Terracotta Army. The famous Terracotta Army where he's buried is because he wanted to be immortal. His dream was to be immortal. Of course, this was 2,200 years ago. There was no technology to make him immortal. So he had to rely on his army, the Terracotta Army, to keep him alive. But today we do have technology, and technology is moving exponentially. So since we wrote the first edition in Spanish, now 5 years ago, many things have happened. Incredible amount of things have happened. I am so excited that things are moving exponentially. I'll just tell you 3 things which to me are fantastic, but there are many, many, many more. One, for example, new technologies are coming up. For example, CRISPR, that was, of course, something that existed, now is being used. CRISPR gene therapy, it's being used to correct and eliminate certain diseases right now. This was not possible really 5 years ago. But something even more interesting is mRNA technology, messenger RNA technology that was used for some of the COVID vaccines. This has been perfected now, and companies are using this technology to cure cancer, malaria, and AIDS. These are totally three totally different diseases. Cancer is your own cells that become immortal, and that's bad for you if they eat the rest of the cells. So cancer, it's your own body. AIDS is a virus like COVID, and malaria is a parasite, an outside parasite that comes from mosquitoes. Anyway, so with messenger RNA vaccines in the next 5 years, and we have to watch this recording in 5 years to 10 years, we are going to cure cancer, we are going to cure malaria, and we are going to cure AIDS. I'm totally convinced that in 5 to 10 years, we will cure these diseases, thanks to the quick advances on technology. And the final, two more things. Artificial intelligence is coming in. For example, Google's DeepMind subsidiary created something called AlphaFold. AlphaFold is for protein folding. You know, the folding of proteins, how proteins actually are created in nature, how different atoms combine to create a protein, was the big problem in biology. Scientists thought we could never understand protein folding. And actually, AlphaFold has solved that problem. Now we can visualize how all the proteins, all of them are created. And this would have taken centuries, but artificial intelligence has done it. So artificial intelligence is coming into the game, and artificial intelligence will help us to solve aging. And the final incredible thing that is happening is a lot of funding, a lot of money is coming into this. For example, over a year ago, Jeff Bezos, you know, the creator, the founder of Amazon, with other billionaires, created Altos Labs. Altos because it is in Los Altos, California, Silicon Valley. And Altos Labs has the objective to cure aging, to reverse aging. And they just put a tiny amount of money, $3 billion, you know. This is the biggest funded startup in history, $3 billion to begin this startup. And not only Jeff Bezos, you know, governments are moving in. Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, created a foundation called Evolution Foundation, Health plus Evolution, Evolution Foundation. And they endowed it with $20 billion. And every year they plan to use $1 billion for research and development of anti-aging technologies. So that is $20 billion is not bad. So money is coming in the field for the first time in billions of dollars. So I am truly excited. So we have money, we have new biotechnology, and we have artificial intelligence, all combining to cure aging.
Fantastic. Yes, and I particularly agree on the last point, that the change, even in the last 5 years, I suspect even 5 years ago, you would not have got investment if you were saying, I want to launch a biotech to cure aging. You wouldn't have got grant funding, whereas now people are openly saying it, and that's great news. So I totally share your positivity. I try and get out and about and raise awareness with the general population of what I call the coming life extension revolution. Now, I would say the 2 bits of feedback I get almost every time, they're certainly the top 2 that I get, is the concern about inequality and the concern about overpopulation. Now, I try and calm people's nerves about those problems. I mean, what's your response to those kind of big concerns that people have?
Well, I think these are non-issues, absolutely non-issues, and stupid comments. So actually, I disregard them. And I say, well, first of all, this is not mandatory. If you don't want to be immortal, okay, you can die. You are free to die. You can always die. You know, death is always around. There are accidents, there are homicides, and there are suicides. So death will always be around. So we will not truly be immortal, because an accident can happen anytime. So if people are concerned about the problems of immortality, you can die. I said it openly, but I will answer the 2 points that you are making because they are important, and I don't want people to die, even those who think that they can die or should die, but I'll tell you. Inequality. Well, you know, all technologies, when they begin, are expensive and very bad. The first mobile telephones were only for the wealthy people, for the rich people, and they were very bad. Today, mobile phones are incredibly good, and everybody in the whole planet, even in Africa, in India, if they want a cell phone, they have a cell phone, because there are Chinese and Indian cell phones for just $10. So everybody today who wants a cell phone has it. If they don't want it, or maybe they are children, or maybe they are too old, they don't have it. But now everybody has one. But I'll tell you something else, like COVID. COVID vaccine was basically, for the first time in human history, released at the same time, or almost the same time, throughout the planet for a relatively small pandemic, because COVID pandemic is tiny compared to the bubonic plague that killed 1 out of every 3 Europeans. 1/3 of Europeans died because of the bubonic plague. That was a big pandemic. Or even AIDS. AIDS has killed about 40 million people. So COVID is nowhere near that. However, it paralyzed the planet for 2 years. So now we actually have to paralyze the planet for aging. Aging is killing all of us. All of us are dying because of aging. So this is the big pandemic. It's not COVID. It's not AIDS. It's not even the bubonic plague. It is aging that is killing us. But I am saying COVID because COVID was a small pandemic in historic terms, but it paralyzed the planet. And it was given for free to everybody. Why? Because if it had not been free, there would have been revolutions. Imagine. And for aging, which is 1,000,000 times worse than COVID, you know, if it is not free and if it is not available immediately throughout the planet, there could be a major revolution. But anyway, that will not happen. I mean, the revolution, because it will be available to everybody and for free. Of course, it will cost billions of dollars to develop, like the COVID vaccines. They cost billions and billions of dollars, but they were given for free to the people everywhere, even in rich countries. So the same will happen with the anti-aging therapies once they have been mastered and they can be democratized and given to everybody. The other problem about overpopulation. Well, this is a non-issue. This is also stupid. I say, well, if you think there are too many people, give the example and commit suicide. Get rid of yourself, because if there are too many, begin with you, giving the example. But again, I don't want people to commit suicide. I just want to explain this is a non-issue, like Malthus, the famous British economist, Malthus, he said that it was the end of the world about 230 years ago in London, in Great Britain, because London had reached 1 million people. And he said, 1 million people in London, this is the end. We cannot have more people in London. And England had 10 million people. And he said, 10 million people, this is the end. No more people in England, the end. Well, today, London, Greater London, has about 12 million people. And the United Kingdom has about 67 million people around. And it has never been better, never been better. In the time of Malthus, life expectancy in London was 35 years. 35 years. You know, life expectancy today is over twice that. And we have 12 times more people in London, from 1 million to 12 million. And we live better, healthier, longer, richer lives. So Malthus was wrong. And the people who say that overpopulation is a problem, they are wrong. And my book is coming out in China because China is having the biggest demographic implosion, not explosion, implosion in the planet. The population of China begins declining this year for the first time from 1.43 billion people to 700 million people by the end of the century. Less than half of the population will be alive by the end of the century because of the one-child policy and many other things. So the population is declining fast. That is why my book also is a major bestseller in China. And the book has been published by the government of China because this is the biggest issue of China, declining population, not exploding population, declining population. So those are non-issues. And the final point, people want to cure cancer. Everybody, I think, wants to cure cancer. Everybody wants to cure Alzheimer's. So everybody should want to cure aging because aging is the mother of all chronic diseases. Aging is the mother of cancer. Aging is the mother of Alzheimer's. So instead of curing cancer, that I hope everybody wants, or curing Alzheimer's, or curing heart attacks, what we need to cure is aging. Aging stops all of those problems. So the big issue is to cure aging. That will solve cancer, Alzheimer's, and all other problems.
Fantastic. Yes, I think I see people's jaws drop when I explain that actually underpopulation is government's biggest concern at the moment, that population is going to fall off a cliff by the end of the century. Okay, so in the book you kind of quote Ray Kurzweil, who is his book The Singularity is Nearer is one of the reasons I got interested in longevity, and he's been holding to his forecast of longevity escape velocity by 2029. And for people who don't understand or don't know about longevity escape velocity, that's when science is extending life expectancy by 1 year for every year which passes. So yes, chronologically you get a year older, but your health actually can be reset by a year at the end of it. So biologically, you're not getting any older. And you also say that the first immortal generation is coming soon. So for people who are quite old, they might be wanting things to come really fast. For people who are younger, they're oblivious to what may or may not happen. Are there different messages for people in their 20s or 50s or 80s about the prospect of immortality?
Well, yes. Talking about immortality is coming soon, very soon. I like to say we are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. And I want to accelerate this so that everybody gets on the boat of immortality. So because it's coming, we are about 20 years away. Ray Kurzweil, actually, who writes a beautiful quote of my book, and I have known Ray Kurzweil for ages, from last century, last millennium, because he's a very famous person from MIT, my alma mater, and he wrote his book, The Singularity is Near, in 2005. Now he is writing the continuation, The Singularity is Nearer, and he keeps his two magic dates, to put it that way, based on technological forecasting and exponential changes. And he talks about 2029 and 2045. In 2029, two things will happen on the software and on the hardware side. On the software side, we will pass the Alan Turing test. That means that in 2029, you will not know if you are talking to a human or to a machine anymore. Most people know the great British scientist, Alan Turing, a pioneer in all of these ideas, and that is why the test is called the Alan Turing test. The other thing that will happen is that we will reach longevity escape velocity, or sometimes called the Methuselarity, the singularity of Methuselah, who lived about 1 million years. To be exact, 969 years according to the Bible. But probably that was not the case. That was not true. But we will be able to live 1,000 years now. In fact, I think that the first people who are going to live 1,000 years are alive today, alive. Why? Because we will reach longevity escape velocity by 2029 to 2030. That is Ray Kurzweil's forecast. Actually, in his new book, he just sent me the manuscript of his book to review. He keeps that day that he has been talking about for almost half a century. You know, from last century, he has been talking about longevity escape velocity, or the idea of longevity escape velocity and the singularity, which is what will happen by 2045. We will reach this mega global artificial intelligence equal to human intelligence combined, all of humanity combined, and we will merge with this artificial intelligence. But also, we will reach immortality through biological rejuvenation. By 2029, 2030, we will gain 1 year per year we survive. That is longevity escape velocity, but we will still age. We will keep on aging until 2045, when we can reverse aging. We can rejuvenate people biologically by 2045. Actually, I think this might happen earlier. And so does Ray. Ray is conservative in many of his estimates, and he thinks we will pass the Alan Turing test before 2029, and that we might reach longevity escape velocity around that time, maybe a few years, 1 or 2 years earlier or later, but around that time. But also, I think we will get biological rejuvenation before 2045. Anyway, you can read that in The Death of Death and in Ray's book that comes out next year, The Singularities Nearer.
Okay, fantastic. So I know you mentioned the option of Plan B, and I think there's a chapter on Plan B in your book. But let's stick with Plan A, and hoping that the first generation longevity treatments are going to arrive shortly. Are you doing anything personally to kind of make sure you are living long enough to live forever, like supplements, lifestyle, therapies, anything which, I know you wouldn't want to recommend anything, but anything which people may be interested in?
Yes. Well, first of all, Plan A is immortality. And as you said, Plan B is cryonics. And I actually coordinated the first cryonics case in the Spanish Peninsula, in the Iberian Peninsula, in 2016. Now we have actually 4 Spanish cases, cryonically suspended patients, and there are hundreds in the world, including many from Britain. But that's Plan B. I think we can make it to Plan A, because I hope all of us will be alive to 2030, and then hang on until 2045 for rejuvenation technologies. So what am I doing? What is Ray Kurzweil doing? Because he is actually 76 years old, and he doesn't plan to die either. Well, he talks about 3 bridges to immortality. One bridge that takes to another bridge, and then to another bridge to immortality. So basically, there are 3 major bridges that Ray talks about, and that I also present in the book, and I talk about certain things we should do. So bridge A, the first bridge, was in the 2010s, which is do everything that your mother told you. Eat well, sleep well, do some exercise, meditate, don't drink too much, don't smoke, etc., etc., etc. That's bridge 1 in last decade. In this decade, in the 2020s, we have bridge 2, the second bridge. And this is the first biotechnology therapies that will keep us alive by the end of the decade, and will move into bridge 3, which is nanotechnology. More advanced than biotechnology, nanotechnology. We will have nanobots in our bodies that will clean up the cholesterol in the arteries, in the veins. We will have nanobots that we will get rid of the plaque in the brain, so we don't get Alzheimer's and things like that. So that is nanotechnology in the 2030s, biotechnology in the 2020s. So what do? Well, I take some of the bio therapies that we have available now. Many are supplements. Indeed, I take several supplements. I take NAD+, I take resveratrol, I take as normal general supplements that have many vitamins and minerals. These are obviously important. I take metformin, which is recommended by many people. And as soon I will be taking rapamycin and senolytics. I think rapamycin and senolytics could be officially approved for human use in 2 to 3 years. And these are very important. Rapamycin already extends the lifespan of dogs by 50% today. So they are doing experiments in other animals. But if it works on dogs, it should work on humans, I think. We are over 90% genetically equal to dogs. So our genomes are similar. Well, most mammalians, most mammals like us, we are very similar. Anyway, so I am waiting for rapamycin and for senolytics, which is to eliminate zombie cells, old cells in the body. Also, I do intermittent fasting. I try to eat only once a day. I actually learned this in Japan. I lived 3 years in Tokyo. This is very popular in Japan. People do OMAD, 1 meal a day, OMAD diet. Google that. And even more, every 2 months, I try not to eat for 3 days. 3 continuous days without food. I drink green tea. I learned in Japan too. Green tea is very good for longevity, but no food for 3 days. Why? Because this forces what is called autophagy. Auto, oneself, self, and phagy, eat. So one eats itself. If you don't eat in 3 days, what happens? The body is hungry. And that forces the young, strong cells to eat the old, weak cells, including cancer. Okay, so autophagy is fantastic. I recommend it to everybody, and it costs nothing. Not only it costs nothing, it saves you money, because 3 days without food, it saves a lot of money. But it is fantastic for your body. You eliminate some possibilities of cancer, and you eliminate the zombie cells in the body, the old cells. You need to get rid of those old cells, like the rotten apples. You know the story of a rotten apple, rotten all the other apples around. The same happens with old cells in our body. We need to get rid of them, and autophagy helps with that. It saves you money, and it is fantastic. So every 2 months, 3 days without food. And let me tell you, you will not die. You will not die. You can actually be for about a month without food. I don't recommend that, but many experiments have been done. We can survive for about a month without any food, but only for a few days without water. We need water. In fact, we are, as you know, we are over 60% water. So we need water. We are water. And I hope that we are clean water, not dirty water. So anyway, those are the things I recommend. Autophagy, OMAD, 1 meal a day, and then supplements and the things that are coming up very soon.
Fantastic, really interesting. Thanks, Jose. And you've raised some really interesting points on today's conversation, and I know you described them all in your book. So maybe I'll give you kind of one last opportunity to just explain briefly, why is physical immortality, radical life extension such a great idea, and importantly, why should people read your book or buy your book, buy the book?
Yes, actually, that's the subtitle of the book you see here, the scientific possibility of physical immortality and its moral defense. Its moral defense. As I explained, overpopulation, inequality, these are really non-issues. The only issue is that we are all dying, all of us. The problem is not the Russians, the Chinese, climate change, terrorism, AIDS. Those are not problems, really, compared to aging. In fact, in advanced economies, in Europe, 90% of the people, 90% die of age-related diseases. Only 10% of the people die of accidents, of malaria, of AIDS, of climate change, of terrorism, of the Russians, of the Chinese, etc., etc., etc. You add all of those things, they only represent 10% of the people dying in Europe. What is the big elephant in the room is aging. It kills 90% of Europeans. This is the common enemy of Europe and on humanity as a whole. This is our enemy. So this is the most noble cause we can have, the most altruistic thing we can do in our life, the most ethical thing, the most moral thing is to kill death before death kills us. And when we talk about human rights, actually, there is a list of human rights. And the first right is rightly the right to life. That is very good. But it should be second right and third right and fourth right, because without life, there are no rights. So the right to life of everybody all the time should be the only human right, to put it very clearly. So just to put it all together, this is the most beautiful thing, the most noble cause we can devote our lives to, and that is what I am doing. My goal is to kill death, and we are very close. So I want people to join this cause, to join this movement against the only common enemy of humanity, which is aging. And we are very close to fulfill the biggest dream of humanity since the beginning. In fact, in the first book in human history, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is about immortality. We humans, since the beginning, we always wanted immortality. That is why religion offered immortality, because we didn't have physical, biological immortality until now. So religion had to come up with the idea of, okay, you will have immortality in another life, in another place. But now we can have immortality here and now. So if you still want immortality in another place, in another time, that is okay. You can have it. I repeat, you can always die. It's not that death is forbidden. No. Death is around the corner. You can always die. And there are accidents, homicides, and suicides. So that will probably sadly continue. But for the first time, we are in front of immortality, but even better, biological rejuvenation, because we don't want to be immortally old. We want to be immortally young. And we are close to that. So please join the cause, read The Death of Death, recommend it to your friends. And remember, we are very close. So we need more people to join this cause. And also politically, because politicians need to know that this is good. This is not bad. And actually, it doesn't cost money. It's like autophagy. Autophagy doesn't cost money. It saves you money. Well, being young saves money, because right now, 80% of the medical expenditures go in the final years of the life of the person, and people still die after 80% of the medical expenses, and people die. If they didn't die, that would be okay, but people die anyway. Well, now we will not get sick. There will be no medical expenses at the end of life, because we will not be old. We will not be sick. So we will save lots of money, okay, for governments as well. This is the best thing that politicians can do.
Excellent. Well, I can honestly say I'm about 2/3 of the way through the book, and I'm finding it a fascinating read. Looking forward to reading the rest of it. Well, I highly recommend that everybody gets themselves a copy of The Death of Death by José Cordeiro and David Wood. And maybe we'll speak to David Wood on another podcast in the future. Thanks very much for your time today, Jose. Thank you.
Beautiful. Live long and prosper for my Trekkie friends. Live long and prosper.
Thank you.